Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 83.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have a great interview with Bret and Tracie Shroyer. They run the Allowance Academy, and they also have a podcast out there on parenting success. They've got a lot of great insight, and we're going to talk a lot about allowance and budgeting and helping our students understand finances and budgeting and kind of give them some training while they're still at home before we send them off to college. As I mentioned in the interview, I have a 13-year-old, so I'm in the midst of this now, trying to figure out, how much allowance should I be giving my son, Zach? Is it too much? Is it enough? Should he be handling his own money? How do we determine how much he gets to spend on video games and school lunches and just all kinds of stuff, and just kind of trying to figure out how we might be able to do this. After the interview, I'll give you a little bit of my insights, because after the interview, when I did this interview, I actually went out and got involved with FAMZoo, which is something that Bret and Tracie talked to me about on this interview. So I went ahead and signed up for that, so I will give you an update at the end here. But this is a great interview. I think all parents need to be teaching their kids about money, because once they're off to college, they're going to kind of be on their own. And I know in the past, when I was in college, a lot of my college mates there were signing up for credit cards and getting themselves in trouble and not really managing their money very well. And I think anything we can do to teach our kids while they're younger will help protect them a little bit and make the college transition a little smoother. As always, our show notes are available at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/83 for this episode. And we will have links to FAMZoo as well as all the other things that we talk about here on this podcast available there. So if you need the details, you can go to our website. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the interview. All right, today we're sitting down with Bret and Tracie Shroyer. They're the owners and operators of AllowanceAcademy.com. Welcome, Bret and Tracie. So, pardon me.
Thank you very much, Brad. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here.
So you guys obviously have a website. I know you also have a podcast. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing and why you're doing it?
Yeah, we have, we've been operating AllowanceAcademy.com for, what is it now, about 3 years or so?
Yep.
And that sprang out of a book that we wrote a number of years ago. But this year, we tried something a little bit different. We're reaching out to parents on a number of different topics on our podcast, Parenting Success. We've been focusing on money, financial education, for a number of years. And as we're going down that road, we started to see that there were other issues that parents were dealing with or that were really resonating with them around ideas of respect and responsibility and control. And a lot of these things had to do with some of the same topics that we were teaching about on the money side. And we found a great audience in talking to parents about being successful parents, because that's really what I think we're all interested in the end, is how can we be the best parent we can possibly be? And there's so many pieces to that puzzle. So this is a great way for us to interview a lot of people on a lot of different topics, and to get their impressions on what makes for successful parenting.
All right. Well, great. So tell me a little bit more about the Allowance Academy then. What, if I were to go there, what specifically would that be about?
Well, Allowance Academy is where we started, and that is we have on our website a spot where if you have young kids, start here. This is the nitty-gritty of how to start giving kids their first allowance, maybe you start when they're 3 and you just need to teach them how to actually spend money and how money is used, which, kids that young it's surprising, but they don't really know what money even is. And then we have a section for medium kids. These are kids that might be a little bit older. They maybe have had some experience with birthday money or those types of things. Maybe you're thinking about giving them an allowance, but you don't really know where to start. And then we have the big kids section, and that's more for parents of teenagers, or it can even be parents of younger kids who have experience with an allowance or with spending and saving their money, and it directs you on how to take those next steps from starting an allowance, teaching what money is, starting allowance, building the allowance, and then eventually weaning the kids off the allowance so that when they're 18 and ready to move out, they can support themselves and they know how to manage a budget.
Yeah, so let's talk about that weaning off, because that has my attention a little bit. Especially when I'm dealing with a lot of parents with kids that are preparing to go off to college, and they might be a sophomore, junior in high school. So I guess the first question is, what's your opinion as far as when allowances are kind of no longer the way to go?
Well, it depends on what you've been doing with your kids up until that particular point. If you've never given your kids an allowance, obviously you don't need to wean them off. But the problem with that is that you are sending them out into the world probably without knowing how to truly manage money. And one of the things we find that is really, really common is we talk about allowances, and the first thing we get from people is, I am not giving my kids free money. I am not teaching them to just accept handouts. And the way we look at it is when we dive a little deeper with those parents, what we find out is the reason the kids don't get an allowance is because the parents just take care of the kids' expenses, their needs. So they're paying for their clothing and their shoes and their activity fees and their school lunch and any of the other expenses that come up on a day-to-day basis because they're being good parents and they think that's what they should do. And they ask the kids to use their money to pay only for the extra items, the more expensive jeans, the nights out at the movies, and those types of things.
So the kids are learning not to manage money and manage a budget, but they're learning to manage and spend their entertainment budget. That's the only financial education they're getting, is how can I manage my fun money? And that's a kind of a hard awakening when they get to be young adults.
Well, and the thing is, the counter that we have to the parents who are paying for all of their kids' expenses and all of their needs is that, to us, is the definition of giving kids free money, because you're spending thousands of dollars on your kids every single year and they're learning nothing from the money that you're spending on them. If instead you use that same money that you've been spending on them anyways, it's not costing you anything extra, and you start to make them accountable for that money and you start to make them make the decisions about how it's spent, then you're using that money to teach them how to manage a budget and how to manage their expenses. And you do that via what we call an allowance. And our definition of allowance is the amount of the household budget that a child is allowed to spend on their own behalf.
Okay. So I'm guilty as charged, but my kids are a little bit young right now. They are, in essence, managing their entertainment budget. Mm-hmm. And I want to go and buy something at Target because I've got money in my pocket kind of thing. But my oldest is 13 now. So I guess just what you've mentioned, I'm starting to think, let's say, oh yeah. So, and I've kind of seen that where now instead of just handing them money for whatever, as far as just entertainment, you say, well, here's your clothes budget or your, so how would we get started in that? I guess I have a 13-year-old, so I'm kind of transitioning now where.
I think you're exactly on the right path, that you're seeing that there's a bigger opportunity here, because at 13, I don't know what life is like in your house, but I think when our kids were 13, we added it up and we said, this kid's costing us like $300 a month or something. If you added up, everything that you spend on a kid and let's go ridiculous, like food and medical and things, we're not going to make them manage their medical budget. But there's a lot of that stuff that you can start to give to them. And school lunch is a great first one. A lot of parents do that kind of automatically. After that, shoes. After that, clothes. So think about shoes, for example. Over the course of a year, a 13-year-old, you're probably going through a size a year. Yes. So it doesn't matter what kind of shoes you're buying. You're not going to wear them next year. And so they might be going through 2-3 pairs of shoes in a year. Take 3 pairs times $50, and that's $150 budget for shoes.
Right, plus football shoes and basketball shoes, and
yep.
Yeah, that's just the start. And then if you're in a cold climate, now you got boots, and that's even more expensive. So think about that number. What is that over the course of a year? And now give that money to your kid in a budget every month.
Divide it by 12.
Yeah, it's $25 a month. I think was our kids at that age, that. Because we're in Minnesota, so every year it's shoes and boots and everything else. They're not buying shoes every month, though. They're only buying shoes every other month or every 3 months. So they have to save that money up. So we actually gave them a little envelope. We gave them the cash. They put it in the envelope. They could see it adding up. And when it was time to go buy shoes, we would go to Kohl's or Target or something.
Play it against sports for football gear.
Play it against sports for football gear. And they knew that they had, you've got $75 now, but you got to buy 2 pairs of shoes. So how are you going to do that? And sometimes we'd have to go to a couple stores.
Okay, so now are you limiting it then and saying, well, you've got a budget and this is your shoe budget and you can't spend it except on shoes?
That's
to start.
That's what we're doing.
Yep.
Yeah, to start. Absolutely. It's reinforcing the idea that you have a lot of money coming in, but you're earmarking it from day one. You know that this is going to be for shoes someday. When you give them clothing, you know there's going to be clothing someday. Right. And the next
reason I bring this up is I could see my son, and as an example for the clothing budget, he would say, well, I'll just wear the same shirt all day long and I'll go buy some Xbox games.
Yeah. Well, that was our kids.
Yeah, and we actually, there were some categories, and to start, they had to spend their money in that budgeted category. Part of the advanced process is letting them start to move money from category to category. Like, our sons wanted more money in their activities budget, but our daughter wanted more money in her clothing budget. But that isn't something that we start letting them maneuver until they've really, really figured out how this budgeting thing works and they've mastered that. And then there were some categories, as we added categories, and like Bret said, we started with school lunch and to manage the cost of a la carte items and things like that. But there are some categories that were not, that we didn't give them control over their money, and it was things like haircuts,
music lessons, because we knew they'd give those up in a heartbeat. So there were some things that we said, no, we will continue to manage your money on those.
Okay, that makes sense.
Another thing I was just going to say with that football gear is one of the ways that we've handled that too, and we've suggested to parents in Minnesota, hockey is the sport, and it's crazy how expensive it is. And so when parents break down the expense of hockey, because it actually is year round here, and they find that their kids are spending, they might be spending $1,000 a month on hockey if they take it, out over the year, but they don't want to give their kids $1,000 a month in that hockey budget. So what the parents will do is they'll say, we're going to pay for, I don't know, we don't have hockey kids, but let's say we're going to pay for your ice time and we're going to pay for your basic registration, but we're going to give you X number of dollars to cover your equipment. And that encourages the kids to take care of their equipment, to make sure that their skates don't get lost, to buy used when used is appropriate.
Because you can buy a $25 hockey stick, or you can buy a $500 hockey stick. And when money is someone else's issue, a kid will naturally gravitate toward the high-end, high-performance graphite, whatever,
hockey stick,
multi-$100 hockey stick. Give them a budget, and they start to manage that.
So in some cases, you may not give them the full budget, but you might say to them, okay, but this is the part of the budget you are responsible for, and let them know this is what it is costing our family every year, because so many people get frustrated that their kids don't appreciate what they're doing, but it's because the kids have no idea. And as kids start to get more money savvy, they're going to start to realize, holy cow, that's a big investment my family is making so that I can play hockey.
Right. All right. So now how do you deal with my son's about to do something really stupid, and do I just let him do it? Kind of, he is going to go spend his entire hockey budget on the really cool hockey stick.
Yeah.
Do we just let it happen, or what?
Do it with a smile on your face.
Do it do it to the point of pain, but not excruciating pain. You have to let the kid make some mistakes. It's the only way that we learn how to manage money is by making boneheaded decisions with money. And the whole point of giving the responsibility for managing this budget to your kid is so that they make mistakes and they're painful and they learn from them, that they have to sacrifice. And if they're blowing a bunch of their budget on that expensive stick, they're not going to have enough money to buy whatever. They're going to have to make do with used equipment, or they're going to have to find creative ways to repair something or whatever. They're going to have to borrow money from their entertainment budget so they can pay for something in their hockey budget. That's exactly what you want to do. Now, like I said, it has to be painful, but not excruciating. If you see them about to make a $500 error and you just simply as a family can't afford that, by all means, stop them. But if they're going to make a $20 or $50 error, and you know that eventually they can get by, if they just wait a month or two, they'll be able to correct it. That's what you want them to do.
The one thing to remember is we're trying to make this as real world for the kids as we can, and we're trying to give them a soft place to land when they make their mistakes while they're still at home. So it's much better for them to make that mistake now with a hockey stick and find out what the sacrifice, is that's associated with that when it comes to buying something else and saving that money for something else in the future, rather than waiting until they've moved out on their own and they decide that they need to buy, instead of the used car, they need to buy, the really upgraded super cool car. And before you know it, they're sleeping in your basement because they're in debt over their heads.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk a little bit as kids get even older now. So now they're 16 or 17 or 18. How do jobs come into the mix? I mean, are you withdrawing some of the budget and saying now you go do it on your own, or what?
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And just to peel back the curtain a little bit, our kids, we have a in high school a senior, a junior, and a sophomore. So we got 3 kids that are right at that age, different phases. And our senior now, he's working a lot of hours. He's earning a lot of money at Starbucks. And every quarter, I peel his budget back. And I let him know, next quarter, your budgets or your allowance is going down by another $25.
Right. You're not changing his budget. You're changing his allowance.
Yeah, I'm not changing his budget. I'm changing his allowance. So at their peak, the kids were about $200 a month that they were managing because they were kind of on their own. Here's your money. This is for all your activities and your shoes and your clothes and your fun and your savings and your charity.
And they peaked at 15 before they could have an outside of the house job.
They're at their peak. And now our senior is down from that $200 high to he's down under $100. And by the time he leaves this summer, he'll be down to zero, I'm hoping. That's what we all hope, is that you've got an adult child, he's going off to college, and you're not giving him money, regularly on a monthly basis. He's got a part-time job to support himself, and hopefully that sticks. And having the financial discipline, having the money management skills is what gives us some hope that it's actually going to work for him.
Right. So I guess here's a topic that I spend a lot of time talking with parents about, which is, how did you talk about college budget with your senior and or junior, as far as what you're willing to pay and how that kind of fit into the mix as well?
Yeah, well, so we're very open about it and let them know that we don't see it as our position to pay for college, but we will help, and then we let them know what that budget was. We're contributing this sum of money, and if you're planning on going to an expensive college or a private school, it's going to cost you a lot more. If you're going to a state school, that'll cost you less. We actually helped them by putting together a spreadsheet, that helped them see what the college cost was. They have some savings and investments. They have some money coming from us. What's the remainder? And if they're taking out debt for that, what does the repayment look like? And how does that depend upon whether you are working, in a social service job, as an engineer, as a teacher? What are those kind of salaries? So they got kind of a big picture of, if I go to a really expensive school and I get a low-paying job, I will be in debt forever, and I'll never have anything that I want. If I have some other choices, that's a much better picture. And our son actually evaluated the pros and cons of Air Force Reserve, because there's some big college tuition reimbursement that comes with that. And he saw what that differential was in terms of his ability to pay for college.
Absolutely. All right. So then, again, we've got a 17, 18-year-old. And again, what's your opinion here as far as being able to find work or work interfering with studies and some of those types of things? I mean, if you have did you automatically assume that a job was going to be sought by your kids, or?
Yeah, we actually have assumed that for years. We're entrepreneurial, as you are. And we wanted to build that, skill within our kids. All 3 of our kids have a little bit of an entrepreneurial bent. They go out and they find work, in the neighborhood. Our daughter babysits. Our son does all kinds of stuff.
Our daughter started a auto detailing business when she was about 11. Mm-hmm. And during the summer months, between babysitting and her detailing business, which is called French Fry Frenzy, because she cleans out all the moms' vans in the neighborhood, she almost works a full-time job in the summer just doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been doing that for years. So that was kind of the model. The kids do typical things. They mow the grass. They've worked for us. They do things like that.
And now, so our senior, the 18-year-old, he's working quite a bit in, like I said, at Starbucks. But it has been an expectation since they were 16 that they would find a way to earn money, because we let them know your allowance is going to start going down. You're old enough to be working. You can find a way to earn money. We're going to start cutting your allowance back. So if you want to continue to be able to, fund your life, you're going to need to find a way to replace that. And studies do come first. Your number one job as a high school student is getting good grades. That doesn't take all of your time. And you can find ways, even if it's just a few hours a week, you can find ways to earn and to save. And our son is taking that, very much to heart. Actually, our daughter is too. They're working a lot and they're saving quite a bit.
And our third son has just turned 16, so he's not quite at that point yet. But there's a really good point to make about this. And as I said earlier, a lot of parents say, well, I want my kids to just buy their own, they can have a job and they can pay for their own luxury items. But the truth of the matter is that if your kid is working, and our expectation is, 10 to 15 hours a week is reasonable. Sometimes of the year, if they're really involved in a particular activity, their hours will drop down. Sometimes their hours might go up. But the reality is that the average teenager cannot actually make enough money in a part-time job to really be able to use that money to learn how to spend it responsibly. They would have to be working a 40-hour-a-week job to fund all of the things that we as parents pay for them. That's why we're working 40-hour-a-week or more jobs. So that's part of it too, is yes, it's great to say, you need to go out and get a job and start paying for some of this stuff on your own, but they're never going to get enough money that way to make it real world for them.
Right. So even if they are working, now, did you put college savings on their plate as far as?
Yeah, absolutely. Since they were 6 or 8, we had a concept. We call it the 401k kid plan. So our kids would put money into savings, short-term savings. Boy, this is a tangent. One of the big sticking points with savings and kids is that kids have a different idea of savings than parents do. For a kid that's 6 years old, you're putting money into savings so you can buy candy or a video game. For an adult, you're saying, you should be putting money into savings so you can pay for college or a car or whatever. So what we did was our kids would put money into savings, and then when they took money out of savings, they could take out, say they wanted to take out $50 to buy a game. They would actually have to have $100 in their savings account. So they would take out $50 to pay for the game, and then $50 would go into their long-term saving, their college fund, their 529 plan. And that money then has been building for a decade. Every time they take money out of savings, they know that I'm also going to put money into long-term savings. And then
they're matching their own contribution, and then our plan for them for college is we will match what they have saved. There's no extra money from us, and there's no, we're not funding college for them free and clear, but the money that they have saved, we will match. And so our son who starts college in the fall was just talking yesterday about saying, he said, I wonder how much I could make on a sod crew this summer, because he knows if he, works 60 hours a week on a sod crew and we match that money, he's going to be set for quite a while once he gets to school.
Right. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the mechanics of all this. Do your boys have checking accounts or savings accounts or credit cards, or how does a teenager spend money today?
Well, there's a spectrum that you go on as you're teaching your kids. You start out with a cold hard cash, and you move up eventually to a checking account. It's important that they get access to that.
But it is important to start with cash, because
definitely.
Even a teenager needs to start with cash so they understand how much money. I mean, even adults who need to get out of debt, they say go to a cash system because it's a completely mental switch to be handing over cash. So no matter how old your kids are, start with cash.
And a checking account is a great next step, because it gives the kid the mental picture of going to the bank with cash, putting cash in the bank, and then writing a check. So the check is the same. It's the cash that I've already earned. These days, with a checking account, you almost always get a debit card, an ATM card, And that's a good skill to learn, how to go to an ATM machine and take cash out that way, how to use the card to spend, and again, hopefully they understand this card is spending cash that they've already just taken to the bank. We don't endorse giving kids a debit card for everyday purchases because it's usually tied to your savings account or your checking account, and you could spend all of your money that way. Instead, what we do, the next step, when they're carrying around a card and using that for their day-to-day purchases, which a 16-year-old, as soon as they're mobile and out of the house, they're going to need a spending method like that. We use prepaid spending cards. And we've been through a couple of different programs. We started with the Visa Bucks program, which a number of banks issue. And it was a little bit clunky, but it got the job done. We ultimately settled on it's called FamZoo. And it is a family banking card, essentially. It's a prepaid card. So every month, I load my card via direct deposit, and then I transfer money from my card to my kids' cards as their allowance. And so they get to see that online. They know the money that's in their card. They can check it from their phone, see what their balance is, and then they'll then save that money up month over month if they're saving up for a bigger purchase.
Okay, so then is it possible to do the envelope system within that? In other words, saying, well, this is my shoe money, and this is my fun money, and this is my budget. Or do you do that all the budgeting separate from?
Yeah, FamZoo does have the ability to take your account and say, and that's how we used it. We said, this is your shoes, this is your clothing, your fun. FamZoo has a savings account as well, and as a parent, you can say, I'll pay 1% a month interest or 5% a month interest. You can set them out whatever you want. If you really want to encourage savings, set a 5% a month interest, and hopefully they don't bankrupt you at that rate. But yeah, it also allows you to set up a loan. We had our daughter had to go to camp and hadn't saved up enough, and so she borrowed $500 from us. I set that up in FamZoo with an automatic monthly repayment, and she's paying a little bit of interest on that. So she got to see that. It encouraged her to pay that off quickly.
It drove her nuts.
She hated having debt, and she hated paying interest on the loan.
Yes.
And we weren't getting rich on her. We aren't a payday loan service, but we wanted her to know that if you take out a loan, it does cost you more than what the amount of the loan was for.
Okay. So there's various systems out there now that you can use. What are the rules? I don't know if you know this or not, but how old do you need to be in order to have a credit card or whatever it might be? Or is it always tied to the parents, or how does that work?
I don't know about credit cards. Were you asking about credit cards specifically?
Well, credit card, debit card, whatever it is. I mean,
yeah.
Can a 10-year-old wander up with a prepaid cash card and go to Target and then sign on the line like it's theirs, or how would they allow that?
I don't think that there is any age restriction at all on prepaid cards. I mean, it's essentially, it operates like a gift card. If you take your prepaid card to Target, and it's exactly like walking in with a gift card. It does have a signature panel, but kids, can do that. That's a really good legal question. I have no idea if there's a legal requirement there or if it's just up to the merchant what they will accept and who they'll accept.
We've never had an issue. And even the kids even had debit cards in your name when they were really young.
Yeah, so the first step was opening their checking accounts. They were custodial accounts, so it was my name on the account and their name. The debit cards that were issued actually had my name on them, so they couldn't go to the store and use them. But with FamZoo, we've had 13-year-olds.
Oh yeah.
With Visa Bucks, I think they were 10, and they were using their own cards.
Oh, we have parents using it with kids that are as young as 10.
Oh,
I know we do.
Okay.
Yeah, in our program.
Okay, so there's ways about it, and again, this is all new to me because obviously I was an adult when most of this stuff was invented, so I had no problem getting it, but I'm just trying to understand because I'm right there. My kids are 13, 11, and 9, so they're just now getting allowance, and I'm thinking I need to move off of cash because my kid will walk out with $40 or $60 in his pocket thinking he's going to go spend it on something. And
well, you know what the best part about electronic spending, about prepaid cards like FamZoo
especially,
is that you get to see where the dollars are going. You get to see exactly when and where you spent money.
And you could turn it off, and it's almost immediate.
Well, it is immediate.
Yeah.
If for whatever reason, if you had reason to say, yeah, you need to come home and I'm shutting off your card, you could actually do that.
We actually had a situation with our oldest when he was about, I think he was about 14, and he was online shopping, and something he had said to us made us realize, he's about to buy something really expensive, and he wasn't even at home. He was at school. And so we knew we needed to have a bigger conversation, but in the meantime, Bret just went in and totally turned off the card, so he couldn't make a purchase until we had that conversation with him.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So technology is interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Because I always think of like the things that go on at school where they're raising funds, and you can buy a lottery ticket for a chance to win the gift basket that has the laser tag set in it or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, well, they're only $1 a ticket. Here's $40 because I want that really bad.
Yeah.
And then they don't win, and then they're all frustrated. But again, it's hard to prevent.
Well, and in some cases, it's a lesson to learn too. And if you're worried, you can always make sure they have less money accessible to them on that card until they've shown that they can use it effectively. On the flip side too, it's been really nice. One of our kids, actually, he travels a lot, and so for school, and he's been to situations where he'll be stuck in an airport somewhere, and we can instantly give him money if he gets himself into an emergency situation. So we are big fans.
Which he did. He missed his flight, and he was stuck in Chicago for like 8 hours.
Yeah. So so we're huge fans of FAMZoo, and like we said, there's probably other cards out there. That's the one that we are most familiar with and that we have used with the most success.
All right. Well, great. I think this has been a great discussion on raising our teenagers. But before I let you go, can you tell us a little bit more about how people can get a hold of you and anything else that you have that they might be interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are Bret and Tracie Shroyer. AllowanceAcademy.com is our main site. You can find us on Facebook at Allowance Academy. And if you go to AllowanceAcademy.com/iTunes, you'll see the link to our podcast, which is Parenting Success.
Or you can search for us on iTunes.
Or search on iTunes for Parenting Success. We offer some courses on the website. There's a lot of downloadables. There's just a lot of resources that you can get into. Join the conversation with us on Facebook. We love talking to parents about raising great kids, raising responsible, respectful kids. We have a lot of interesting ideas about money, but it goes beyond that as well. This is just one of the areas that we're targeting. I read an interesting quote the other day that said, in kindergarten, what was it? The 2 things in kindergarten.
See, now you put yourself in a hole.
Put yourself on the spot. I can't. Essentially,
the 2 things that you use most in life, 2 things that are most important in life, nutrition and managing money, are things you learn in kindergarten and you never revisit, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we're kind of evangelists here. We're driven with a purpose. We want parents to be comfortable and confident talking to their kids about money. And we're here to help.
All right. Well, thank you very much. It's been great, and we'll stay in touch.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Brad.
All right. That was a great interview with Bret and Tracie. Hopefully you learned a lot about allowances and how to handle allowances and kind of what you're going to do going forward. As I mentioned at the open of the show, I did go out and sign up for FAMZoo. So far, I really enjoy it. I mean, there is a little bit of a learning curve because obviously you're setting up a number of accounts. So it took me probably a good half an hour. You got to put in, lots of detailed information as far as birthdays and names and passwords, and everybody gets their own card. Therefore, they have their own passwords. So the whole process, it probably took me a half an hour to do all the data entry into the website. Then I paid my fee. I decided to go for the 2 years all at once and just paid I think it was a $60 fee. And then on top of that, I was able to make my first deposit into the accounts and did it all through the website and got things going. It took about, I think, probably close to 10 business days. And then I did receive the cards in the mail. And then once I logged in and got them activated, and I've actually handed off the card to my oldest, Zach. He's 13. He has a card in his name. It's his card. Just recently, he transferred he gave me $45 in cash that we transferred onto the card so that he could use it for whatever it is he feels is important. Yeah, so I'm just getting started. So far, I would recommend it. I don't, again, I haven't run into any glitches, and it does seem to be a cost-effective way, although I did not shop around a whole lot. What I really like is all the various categories and budgeting that you can do, which I'm almost positive this is probably the only place that you can do it as compared to getting a student account at your bank. I mean, you certainly could create a prepaid card of some sort for your student, but I don't think you would get all the extra tools that FamZoo is providing. So I think it's a great product so far. If you're interested in signing up, again, you can go to my website and there'll be a link there to get you over to FamZoo. That will be an affiliate link at some point when I get it worked out to how to be an affiliate for FamZoo. And I will also, in the future, kind of keep you updated. I will do a FamZoo focused podcast perhaps and kind of tell you my story and let you know how things have been turning out for me. All right, as always, show notes, tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/83 for this episode. And I'd appreciate it if you passed our information along to people that you know. Let them know about the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Teach them how to listen to a podcast. I think a lot of people in our parent age group don't really understand podcasting, don't know it exists. And with the new technology in cars, as an example, you certainly can do podcasting in your car now, which is what I do. I can listen to a podcast while I'm driving instead of the radio. So I kind of pick what I want to listen to, and I do it professional, learning about what I need to do as part of my work in podcasting and other things. I can learn about things. And I also do it for entertainment. There's certain radio shows or whatever it is that I like to listen to, but I listen to them as a podcast so that I can listen to them when and where I want, and I can pause it and pick it up where I left off. So a lot of entertainment I listen to now as well. So I haven't actually listened to the radio much in the last year and a half because I used to be a little bit of talk radio and a little bit of music. Now it's almost entirely podcasting while I'm driving around or exercising. Again, because I can pick exactly what it is I want to be listening to, and I can stop it and change it and pause it. So I think podcasting is great, and I think a lot of parents out there may not understand how it works. So if you've got friends or family or other parents out there, teach them about podcasting and then teach them about my podcast and let them know that they can learn about college by participating in this podcast. They can start simple by coming to the website, and then they can, of course, get more advanced and use a podcast player on their phone or a podcast player in the dashboard in their car. Some of the brand new cars have podcast players built in. It's a burgeoning technology. And if you happen to be listening to this directly on the website or you don't really understand podcasting, you certainly can continue to listen on the website, but you do have options where you can get podcasts, directly to your phone and listen to them where and when you want without having to even have an internet connection, which is what I've been doing recently. All right, that's all we have for today. I look forward to talking to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.